What if I told you there's a war so brutal, so forgotten, that children starve in silence while missiles light up the night sky? A war fueled not only by bullets and bombs, but by hunger. This isn't ancient history. This is Yemen. And it's happening right now. It began in 2014, when the world barely noticed. The Houthis, an armed group from Yemen's rugged north, swept into the capital, Sana'a. They weren't just rebels. They were backed, whispered many, by Iran. President Hadi's government crumbled, and suddenly, the heart of Yemen was under new rule. Abdrabbuh Mansour Hadi, Yemen's president, was cornered. His palace surrounded, his ministers scattered. By early 2015, he fled to Aden, the southern port city. But the Houthis didn't stop. They wanted it all. Hadi was now a president without a capital, fighting for survival. Saudi Arabia watched with alarm. A Shia-aligned group, backed by Iran, taking over their southern neighbor. Unthinkable. Within weeks, the Saudis assembled a coalition, jets roaring across the Red Sea skies. Their mission: crush the Houthis, restore Hadi, and stop Iran at the gates of Arabia. March 2015. The first Saudi bombs fell on Sana'a. The night sky turned orange, glass shattered, and families huddled in basements. The coalition promised a quick war. Instead, they unleashed a nightmare that has lasted for years. The Houthis marched south, into Aden. Street battles raged, militias fought house to house. Hadi escaped again, this time into exile in Saudi Arabia. The so-called temporary capital was now a frontline city, drenched in blood. Were the Houthis truly pawns of Iran? Or simply using Tehran's support to survive? Weapons flowed in, missiles capable of striking Riyadh, even drones reaching deep into Saudi territory. Whether Iran pulled the strings or not, the Houthis were no longer just a local militia, they were regional players. This wasn't just Yemen's war anymore. It became a chessboard. Saudi Arabia and its Gulf allies on one side. Iran on the other. And caught in the middle, 30 million Yemenis, whose homes, markets, and hospitals became battlefields. Taiz, Yemen's cultural capital. Once famous for poetry and scholars. By 2016, it was under siege. Snipers lined rooftops, families smuggled bread through trenches, children carried water in plastic jugs, dodging bullets. A city starved into silence. Marib, once a sleepy desert town. Suddenly, it became the front line. Why? Oil and gas. Whoever controlled Marib controlled wealth. The Houthis wanted it. The Saudis needed it defended. Thousands died in battles that barely made the news. Saudi jets bombed bridges, factories, farms. But precision was a myth. Weddings struck. Funerals struck. School buses struck. The coalition denied responsibility, but bodies told a different story. Each airstrike pushed civilians deeper into despair. The Houthis didn't just take blows. They hit back. Missiles launched into Riyadh. Drones buzzing over airports and oil refineries. Suddenly, Saudi civilians felt what Yemenis had lived for years, the fear of fire from the sky. Hospitals crumbled. Doctors worked with no electricity. Parents watched their children starve. Famine wasn't a weapon of chance, it was a weapon of war. Crops burned, aid blocked, ports closed. Hunger itself became the deadliest army. 4.5 million Yemenis displaced. 18 million in desperate need of aid. Imagine every person you know, hungry. Every face you pass, desperate. That's Yemen today. And the world barely looks. Sana'a, Yemen's capital, once bustling with markets and music. By 2017, it became a city of whispers. Blackouts. Empty shelves. Posters of martyrs on every wall. Life shrunk to survival. Saudi Arabia tightened the noose. Ports sealed, ships inspected, planes grounded. Officials claimed it was to stop weapons from Iran. But it also stopped food, fuel, and medicine. A slow suffocation of an entire country. 2018, all eyes turned to Hodeidah, a lifeline port where 70% of Yemen's food enters. Coalition forces launched an offensive. But urban warfare threatened to turn the city into rubble. The UN begged, "Don't destroy Yemen's last artery of life." Talks in Sweden brought a ceasefire for Hodeidah. Papers signed, hands shaken. But on the ground, gunfire never truly stopped. The city lived in limbo, neither war nor peace. But wait, the coalition itself fractured. Southern separatists, once allies of Hadi, turned their guns on him. In Aden, brothers in arms became enemies overnight. Yemen wasn't just two sides. It was a kaleidoscope of rivalries. By 2019, the UAE, once a key coalition player, pulled back. Too costly, too messy. Yet they left behind proxy forces, carving their own sphere of influence. Yemen was splintering, not healing. September 2019. Saudi Aramco's oil facilities, heart of the kingdom's economy, went up in flames. Drones and missiles struck with surgical precision. Houthis claimed credit. The world gasped. Oil prices surged. Yemen's war had gone global. But soon, headlines faded. Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine stole the spotlight. Yemen slipped back into shadows. For Yemenis, the war never paused. For the world, it became yesterday's story. 2020 to 2021, Marib again. The Houthis advanced, waves of fighters clashing with tribal militias. Each side poured men into the desert sands. Victory here meant survival. Defeat meant collapse. By now, a generation of Yemeni children had known nothing but war. Some carried rifles before they learned to read. Others wasted away in hospitals, their eyes too tired to cry. Childhood stolen by politics and power. Then came COVID-19. As the world panicked over masks and vaccines, Yemen faced the virus with no functioning health system. Graves filled silently. Few tests, fewer treatments. Another invisible enemy joined the battlefield. In 2022, the UN brokered another ceasefire. Hopes rose. Airstrikes paused. But blockades remained. Hunger remained. And soon, the gunfire echoed once more. Peace was always promised, never delivered. Saudi Arabia versus Houthis. Houthis versus Hadi. Hadi versus separatists. Militias versus tribes. It wasn't a war with two sides, it was a shattered mirror, each shard cutting Yemen deeper. President Hadi resigned in 2022, replaced by a council of leaders, handpicked in Riyadh. But a government in exile holds little sway. In Yemen, real power was held by guns, not by signatures. By now, famine wasn't looming, it was here. Parents sold belongings for a bag of rice. Mothers went without food so their children might eat. Hunger became the true ruler of Yemen. And yet, for warlords, the conflict was profitable. Smuggling, checkpoints, aid diversion. For them, peace meant losing power. The war machine fed itself on suffering. One image broke through global apathy, a school bus, hit by a Saudi airstrike. Dozens of children killed. Tiny backpacks soaked in blood. For a brief moment, Yemen's agony was undeniable. But soon, the world forgot again. The Houthis tightened control in the north. Strict laws, secret prisons, iron fists. They weren't just rebels anymore, they were rulers. But ruling a broken land meant ruling over ruins. For Saudi Arabia, the war became a quagmire. Billions spent, reputation tarnished, security still at risk. How do you win a war that drags you deeper every year? Millions fled, but where could they go? Camps in deserts. Overcrowded shelters. Families living in cardboard shacks. Yemenis became exiles in their own land. UN reports showed images too haunting to ignore, skeletal infants, ribs pressing against fragile skin. Doctors described it simply: we watched them starve to death in our arms. Rumors swirl, secret talks between Saudis and Houthis. Could there be peace? Or was it just another pause, another performance for the cameras, while the suffering continued behind closed doors? By 2023, analysts asked, is Yemen still a civil war, or has it become a forever war? A conflict too profitable, too entangled, to ever truly stop. The greatest tragedy. Not just the bombs. Not just the famine. But silence. A war ignored. A nation screaming into the void while the world looks elsewhere. And yet, Yemenis endure. Markets reopen, weddings held in bombed-out halls, children play soccer in rubble-strewn streets. Even amid ruin, life refuses to die. So here's the question: will the world let Yemen bleed until nothing remains? Or will this forgotten war finally be seen for what it is, a human catastrophe that demands an end? The answer is still unwritten.